so I'm going to discuss, James Heilman, part of Wiki Project Med Foundation, and I'm going to be discussing an option of doing healthcare translation and the tools we've built around that as potentially a student project. So a bit about myself, I'm a small town emergency doctor, affiliated with the University of British Columbia, but I'm a long way away from my university, about 800 kilometers. I became involved in Wikipedia back in 2007. I worked as an emergency physician. I was working the night shift. I was looking around the internet and I came across this site that wasn't very good. And then I saw an edit button and I realized that I could fix the internet. And I've been active ever since. So with respect to the history of our translation efforts, we began this project almost 15 years ago now. Initially, it was a collaboration between us, a core group of medical editors on English Wikipedia, and an organization called Translators No Borders, which is basically a collection of volunteer translators who support other NGOs in getting material into other languages. Our initial efforts resulted in about 19,000 additional articles within the Wikipedia world, about 22 million words of text. We worked in about 150 languages, and we did this by handing back and forth Word documents via email and other methods. It was really too much legwork, but we did generate a great deal of content. This content has been extensively viewed since that point in time. But back in 2021, we relaunched our efforts with a lot more technical support to make this process a great deal easier. So who here has done translation? And have you used the Wikimedia Foundation content translation tool? Yeah, so it's a big step forwards. That tool didn't exist when I initially started these efforts back in 2011, and we've now worked to incorporate that tool developed by the Wikimedia Foundation into our workflow to make things a great deal easier. So we were initially, using content based on English Wikipedia. The English Wikipedia community wasn't very happy in having English content developed in a way to make it support translation in other languages. So, some of the things English Wikipedia is against, for example, is having references supporting content in the lead. And the lead is the main content that we're encouraging people to translate from English into other languages. So we've recently moved from English Wikipedia to our own wiki, which we call MD-Wiki, as the starting point for the content. And then we have a new dashboard which helps guide translators through the translation process, automatically tracks people's progress, and helps us collect data on impact. And I'll run through each of those here in a bit. Additionally, we have basically taken the Wikimedia Foundation's content translation tool, and we're now running our own version of that tool, and we've made a bunch of adaptations to the content translation tool specifically for our purpose. And then when the content is finally translated, it goes on the Wikipedia in that target language. So why are healthcare translation? So some of the benefits of doing translation is it eliminates some of the initial barriers a lot of new users encounter when they're coming to join us within the Wikimedia movement. One thing we do is we verify all the content in English to make sure that it's accurate and to make sure that it's well referenced before that content is added to the list of material available to translate. Because of course, if you start with material that isn't correct, and English Wikipedia has a lot of material that definitely isn't correct, you're of course going to waste the translator's time because the resulting content in the target language is also going to be incorrect. So additionally, our tool helps support specifically finding content that's missing in the target language. It's easier to translate content from one language to another when there's nothing in that target language. Otherwise, you end up overwriting other people's content and things can get unpleasant at that point. Additionally, we verify there's no copyright concerns. Some of the classes I've worked with have struggled a little bit with copyright. Also, we address the issues of references not being suitable as we make sure all the content is well referenced in English before handing it over to students or other translators. Some of the benefits of concentrating on healthcare material, most languages of Wikipedia are missing many critical topics, so there is a great deal of work yet to be done outside of English and a couple of large European languages. And then once this content is created, readership is generally much higher than most other topic areas. So, you know, the readers of the world really do care about healthcare content. And if you create articles on healthcare content in your language, people will show up and finish. Here's a look at, you know, the top 100 or so languages of Wikipedia based on how many medical articles they have as of more or less this month. And what we see that 62% of our medical articles by number exist in these top 20 languages, and then healthcare content becomes quite uncommon in many languages of Wikipedia, even languages that are, you know, spoken by tens or you know, hundreds of millions of people. So next here, what I want to run through for folks is a look at our translation tools. And so we'll exit those slides there, and we'll pull up our main dashboard. So this is our main dashboard where folks start when they're doing translation. What one sees is, you know, you're logged in under your Wikipedia account. The tool exists at meta-wiki.toolforge.org, and you can, you know, sort of choose the topic area you want to work on. So, for example, this drop down here will give you various specific areas of interest pertaining to medicine you might be interested in. So, you know, we ran a campaign around women's health. You can select that as a campaign. You can put in the two-letter language code for your language. So, for this case, you know, we can throw in Japanese. And then when you hit do it, what this tool will do is it will generate all the articles that are currently ready to translate in English, but that are currently missing in Japanese. And what we see is there's 74 articles that are missing, and we see, you know, they're ranked by how many page views you've got in English Wikipedia in the last month, so it can help sort of prioritize what direction you're working in. And then one can simply go down and, you know, so the article on rhesus disease, which is occurs still in many areas of the world, is missing in Japanese. One can hit that little translate button, and then our tool does a bunch of work in the background. It's basically working to pull that article on rhesus disease in from EduWiki. It's pulled into the translation tool, and the English article goes on the left, and then it automatically pulls all the content over to the right side of the screen. And we're only, as I mentioned, translating 3 to 4 paragraphs of text for each of these topics to keep the workload for the translators manageable. You know, something someone can do in a single setting. Yeah, so what we see here, we have the English on the left, we have the Japanese on the right. This is an initial machine translation. A human being then needs to go in and make all the appropriate corrections. Machine translation is far from perfect, but it's a starting point that many folks find useful. And then you have the option either to publish it live, or you can publish it to a personal draft. So you can go apply changes, and then I can hit publish. And this is publishing to my user page on Japanese Wikipedia. It says I haven't made enough changes, but one of the nice things is, you know, we have built this tool so that, you know, in some languages such as Portuguese, from what I understand, the machine translation is so good that you haven't made enough changes through the content translation tool to have it get through the filters on Portuguese Wikipedia. So as machine translation gets better, you know, the content translation tool is actually preventing the publication of perfectly correct language articles. So we've sort of got around that. We haven't experienced much pushback from the Wikipedia community about this yet. And then the article is live within my user space now on Japanese Wikipedia. It, of course, is in my user space because it's not in good Japanese, but it takes care of the referencing issues. You see that, you know, all the sentences are referenced. Yeah, so some of the other tools we've built in is we also have a bunch of automation of simple changes. So, for example, some languages have a punctuation space reference. Some languages puts reference and then punctuation and then space. And each language that we see has their own little peculiarities. And we've developed tools such that our translation tool will move the punctuation around depending on the language's preferences, and that can be set within our dashboard. Some of the other things we do is, some languages insist that the months are translated from English for the references. So if you look down in the reference section, references will have specific dates. Some languages insist that, November is translated into Portuguese or translated into Spanish, or else the local community will reject that material. And we have tools that will do those sort of mundane translations of months from one language to another. So that's one half of the tool. The other half is we've built coordinator tools. And so this allows us to help follow up on translators and see what sort of work is being done, and to quickly detect if folks are running into issues, and then follow up on the issues if they occur. So, for example, here we see the article on spider bite was recently translated in Japanese on yesterday. So this is our coordinator tool, and then I can click on that, and that will bring me to the article on Japanese on the spider bite, and I can quickly run through it and check to see whether or not anybody has templated the article or the article's up for deletion, and then follow up with whoever has nominated said article for deletion, and try to figure out what the issue is, and try to address that issue with the community in question. And then you can sort this by the new translations by language, for example. So if you're specifically involved in a certain community, you can see all the articles that have been translated through this tool in that language, and then follow up with the community raising concerns and with us, so we can alter processes. Additionally, what we have is we have a leaderboard that automatically collects folks' impact, and we see, since we launched in 2001, we've had 201 users using our tool. They've created just over 5,000 articles, which is just over 1 million words, and these articles have been read just over 16 million times. And then we can, look at how numbers of translations have increased over time since we've started, and we can zoom in on specific languages. For example, we can look at all the folks who are doing translations into Portuguese and what those translations look like. So, that editor there has translated cervical intraepithelial neoplasm into Portuguese, and then we can, rapidly look and see if there's any issues raised from the Portuguese community regarding that article. Yeah, so there's, a rapid overview of our translation system. One of the other efforts we're working on surrounds image generation. So part of Wiki Project Med Foundation, we have brought on board a couple of illustrators. So sometimes with respect to medical topics, some of the initial images are sometimes overly graphic to be suitable for the top of an article. So we've been doing a lot of work around women's health lately to create drawings of some overly graphic women's health conditions to be the lead image instead of, the current picture of the condition, just so folks aren't overly shocked if they're not in a medical profession and they come visit Wikipedia. So, another thing, if you are working with students in the healthcare environment and, they have fully copyrighted images that they want something similar generated of, we, reach out to us and we'd be happy to, we have more illustration capacity than we have ideas for creating images. As a quick look at some of the images we have been creating. So for this for example is, when someone gets a severe burn, you sometimes need to make specific cuts in specific areas of their skin so that their chest can then move, because burns can become really big and hard. We had an image on Wikipedia before of a human being who had that done, which was overly graphic and somewhat disturbing for those who aren't used to that. So we've created a drawing to replace that image, which gets the same ideas across. You know, the dotted lines are where one would cut through the person's burn. The solid lines are where you avoid cutting. And so that's sort of to make Wikipedia more of a general encyclopedia that anybody can engage with.
Where are they?
Where are the illustrators?
No, it's with the files.
Oh, yeah, so the files exist on Commons. So if you click there, Wikimedia Commons, there's astronomy, bathyotomy made by, yeah, the woman working with us. And we sort of provide her, you know, we find fully copyrighted images. We say we want something that looks like this, and then she creates an image that's similar, but she's then able to release it under an open license for anyone within the movement who's interested to use it. So perfect. Excellent. I would like to open the floor to questions. Yeah.
So how do you make requests for images?
So how do you make requests for images? Excellent question. So what we have is, as I mentioned, we have EduWiki, which is the wiki that we run, which gives us a little bit more capacity to manage things. You can log on to EduWiki with your Wikipedia account, and then you can request editing rights. So EduWiki is not open for anyone to edit, but we're more than happy to give editing rights to anyone who would like them. And then, so over here it says request images. So you can click on request images, and then you can put your image request under this section right here, or you can add your image request to the top page. Or if you have images you want to request, you can just simply email them to me, and I'll add it to the list of images that folks are interested in having generated.
You know, I'm just wondering about the translators without borders project. Are they still working with us, or if they are not working?
Yeah. So we're working with a few organizations, and we're working with individual Wikipedians who are keen in this effort. So we're working with ProZed, and they have a specific coordinator who we're supporting out of Sri Lanka. Translators Without Borders was working with us in Russian and Ukrainian. However, the Russian community was quite unpleasant to Translators Without Borders. Even though they're using professional translators, you know, we would create the initial articles by machine translation, and then an initial translator would go through it in a user space, correct all the language, and then we had a second translator verify the accuracy of the first translator's work. And then we had a Russian physician come in and verify the accuracy of the first two individuals. And an admin on Russian Wikipedia said they don't really want healthcare content in Russia. I'm not sure why. They're like, they don't want Russian Wikipedia to be a healthcare encyclopedia. I'm not sure what to do about that. Yeah. So, you know, some languages are much more difficult to work in than others. And, you know, some languages are very welcoming and are happy to have new contributors. Some languages are very closed. And, you know, some languages, like, you know, we had a user work in Urdu, and she initially got a fair bit of pushback, but, you know, she made a few changes to her style, and now all of her edits are well accepted. So sometimes, you know, you just initially get a fair bit of pushback in a language, and then you get over that barrier, and then the community becomes accepting of your work. So, you know, we experienced pushback in Polish, we experienced pushback in Urdu, we've experienced pushback in Swedish, but I think we've overcome, you know, now the community is happy with our work. Same in Japanese, but Russian, I guess we'll see how things go.
Have you worked on Wikipedia?
Yes, yeah. So we will have lots of Spanish translators. You know, and what we can, you know, anyone can go to our dashboard, and you can sort of see what material has been translated. So here's Spanish. There's 322 articles that's been translated to Spanish, and then you can, yeah. So that one there was deleted, postpartum blues. I think it was yes. So there's two conditions. There's postpartum blues and there's postpartum depression. Postpartum blues is mild, postpartum depression is serious. Almost all women get some degree of postpartum blues after childbirth. Spanish Wikipedia, someone didn't recognize postpartum blues as being separate from postpartum depression. They came around, they deleted it, and then it required some education on our part, because we have non-experts in many of these languages making calls about expert level topics. But the article's back up now because, you know, we do have some strong contributors in Spanish Wikipedia. We're able to sort of push things along better than other languages.
What about the images? Are people accepting the images? Is it less pushback for images compared to, you know, that's what is your experience regarding that?
Yeah, there's less pushback around images and there is text. But, you know, the images is an improvement. Most people are happy to, you know, accept it. It's, you know, they're not the same referencing requirements. You know, some people are pushing for only allowing references that come from, you know, their own language, which is, you know, in specialty areas, English is the language of medicine, and it has been for many years. You know, I know Swedish Wikipedia is wanting us to use Swedish medical sources, but all the Swedish academics, even though their first language is Swedish, they're publishing in English. So even if you're using working Swedish authors, you're still using working Swedish authors who are writing in English. And that's the reality of medicine. But images, we don't experience that same effect. So yeah, go ahead.
Do you need edit permissions to use the translator tool?
You do not know.
Okay.
But you need to have a Wikipedia account.
Yeah.
And then your edits are associated with your Wikipedia account.
Okay.
And in some languages, I think you can only publish to your user space. And then and then in some languages, you don't have the ability to move pages. So I think Portuguese is one language we're struggling in where none of us have the ability to move pages, and we need to sort of harass other people to make those moves for us once the article is of a better quality.
Okay.
Which sort of adds one more layer, yeah, which is reasonable. So yeah, if anybody is interested in doing a project, we're more than happy to, have more students join us and to use this tool. We have about 3,500 articles in English that are ready to be translated, each that are 3 to 4 paragraph overviews of specific health conditions. If there's folks out there who want to concentrate on specific topic areas, I know we did a bunch of stuff around hearing health, and we improved some English Wikipedia articles so that they were then ready for translation into other languages. If folks have specific topics they want to work on, I'm happy to collaborate with people around that as well. Excellent. Any last questions before I hand it over to the next speaker?
I do have one.
Yeah, for sure.
Why did you call your presentation a student project?
So, we have had students working on this. So they have gone through this process. We were specifically working with Wikimedia Taiwan, and they had recruited students from medical schools in Taiwan, and they were using these tools to translate material into Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's definitely more opportunity for collaboration with medical students or for other healthcare students to work on this. I think this is a very excellent activity for many healthcare students, as many students are studying in English, yet when they finish medical school, they finish nursing school, they're treating patients in their native language. And, they don't often develop that skill. So, being, getting involved in translation from English into, Hindi or into Urdu, you learn how to speak medical. No, you learn how to communicate medical information in your own language. Additionally, you're learning this material yourself, as you do the translation. So I think this would be, it does make a perfect project for students.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that in, for example, in Serbia, we do translation exercises, but it's also a good opportunity for philology students to translate articles from one Wikipedia to another, not only to medical students, right?
Yeah.
So it's good exercise for other kind of studies.
Yeah, and many of our translators aren't healthcare professionals. Many of them are, they just have expertise in language. And yeah, so they're involved in translation as translators, not necessarily as healthcare providers. Alex? You have your hand up? No? Okay, excellent. Perfect, thanks everyone.
Thank you. No, 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 la otra. La siguiente. La siguiente. Yeah, okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I started, it is Atikul Suwanakan from Wikimedia Thailand. And my other hat back at home is that I teach anatomy and neuroanatomy to medical students and paramedical students. So the topic of my presentation today will be around that. Okay, so there is a decreasing use of Wikipedia's medical articles, and we're going to look at the page views of the Wikipedia articles related to medicine, and then what it means for healthcare professionals, because it's decreasing every year. So before we get to the real content, let me give you some background information. So Wikipedia is used by roughly 50 to 70% of physicians. So a majority of doctors, they use Wikipedia, and that's the survey done in 2009. And if you look at the number of medical students, a survey by Alawala et al. In 2013, they found that more than 90% of medical students used Wikipedia. As you can see, these two surveys, they were done really, really long time ago. And right now, I think it would be interesting to look at the number of the percentage of students and doctors using Wikipedia. And for my field of study, which is human anatomy, it was reported that Wikipedia was ranked the most preferred anatomy resource online. So as a professor myself, when I look at the students and ask, what do you look for on Wikipedia for anatomy content? They said, if I want to look at the origin of insertion of nerve supply or muscle, I I just Googled it, and it's the first entry that pops up. It's Wikipedia. So it's because of convenience. So no wonder why Wikipedia was ranked the most preferred resource online. And then there was a rise of other non-wiki platforms like YouTube. Actually, there are many great teachers, professors who post their lecture videos on YouTube. I even watch them before I teach sometimes. And there are a lot of medical information on TikTok, and there is a rise of Instagram where students can look at reels and short videos for medical information. And most recently, there's been an introduction of regenerative AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Cloud. We don't know if these technologies, these platforms would cause the decline in page views. So that's my objective. So is Wikipedia still relevant today? That was my research question. So my approach to answer that question is to look at page views from 1,192 articles from Wiki Project Medicine. And you might be wondering, what is this number? So I only took into account top ranked articles and high important articles only. And the same goes for anatomy articles, the top importance and high importance articles only. And then I took the URL of the pages in the respective wiki project, and then I look at the page views using math views tool. And then this graph, it shows the page views of top importance and high importance. Actually, it's the opposite. The top importance and high importance medical articles in the English Wikipedia from 2016 to the end of 2024. And as you can see, we had around 3 million monthly page views back in 2016, and then it slowly decreased until 2019. And then during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a sudden rise in page views. So highlighted by the green arrows. And then after the COVID-19 pandemic, it's still somewhat level, not until in late 2021, and that's around the introduction of ChatGPT. Page view declined from around 3 million to only around 2 million views per month. And this number continues forward into 2022, 2023, and then last year. And that's the overall medical article. And then what about anatomy articles? So I'm an anatomist myself, so I'm quite curious about anatomy page views. So I did the same approach, collecting information from 408 anatomy articles, both the high importance articles and top importance articles. And I found that page views also declining. In 2016, we had around 1 million page views per month, and then slowly declining to around 600,000. So there is a 40% decrease in page views of anatomy articles on Wikipedia. But bear in mind that it's on the English Wikipedia only, so I'm expanding my research to other languages, maybe Spanish or Chinese or other languages. And this graph is also interesting. The correlation between Wikipedia page view and number of entries on PubMed. So I look at, let's say, there is an article about the lung. I search on PubMed and look at the number of entries related to the keyword lung. Yeah? And I do it for almost all anatomical structures, because there are some structures which do not have their own Wikipedia articles, and they are excluded. So there is a correlation, meaning that those receive lots of page views tend to have more publications about it. So structures with high critical importance are more likely to have more page views. And the graph below shows the correlation between page views and web score. So in 2019, there was a group of researchers led by Professor Webb. He ranked anatomical structures from the most important ones to the least important ones. And as you can see, the ones with high web score, meaning they have high clinical significance, they tend to have higher page views. But at the end, these numbers still keep decreasing over the years. So for the future direction, I don't know, but here are some of the ideas, and perhaps we can look at all these ideas and approach this problem more systematically, maybe from an affiliate point of view, from the foundation's point of view. So how we gain more readership, and what are some other measures to increase the page views of traffic on Wikipedia, like engage with academic institutions, students in editing through editathons or education programs. That might work as well. And we might promote the inclusion of Wikipedia editing in, medical medication curricula, and so on and so forth. And then with the traffic view data and its editing trends, we can use them, to guide public health campaigns and curriculum development. So as I said, these are the ideas, but we need to look at the issues from different points of view and approach it systematically. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi. So, yeah, the decrease with ChatGPT is not surprising, and it's affecting Wikipedia and Google and everybody because that's where people go. But most of these AIs, they give you the source, what they got from Wikipedia, right? It's a paragraph or short sentence. But I think that's a difference of the two different people who go looking at medical articles in Wikipedia. One that wants in-depth, wants to read the whole page, and one who just wants the paragraph. So my argument is that we're losing these people who just want a little bit of information, right? And staying steady with those that want to really learn about it. So maybe it's not that big a problem, maybe, I don't know.
And also when I search for something on Google, and there is a Wikipedia entry, there is usually accompanied by a few sentences, and sometimes it answers my questions already, so I don't need to click on the link to the actual page.
Okay, I had a methodological question. When you use the mass view tool, you select only human views or all? Because the mass visualization tool also includes spider visualization, that is like when web searches access the Wikipedia, and also machine visualization. How do you manage this?
If I'm not mistaken, I shows only desktop and mobile views.
But beside this, you need to select the type of visualization, right?
Maybe have to go back and look it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
But do you see a difference in mobile views and desktop views when it comes to decline? Is the mobile views declining or the desktop views declining?
So both are declining at the same rate. But I see more decline in desktop view.
You said there was structures with topics, high clinical importance topics. Yes. What are those topics? Is there this? How do you decide what is the high importance?
So the top importance and high importance, there are editors rated. They are on top pages of each article. So editors who rank on their own. If this article should receive A, B, C, It's internal way, okay? And that's one limitation as well. Okay,
How close are you to, getting data on other languages?
not close, actually, because when I use the mass views statistics, if there are too many articles, it would take forever, and then the tool would become unresponsive,
Yeah.
stop working.
Yeah, you need to use the API to do this.
Oh, it is API.
Automatically, yeah.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much.